So on Monday, Catherine talked about how the precepts expand and deepen our hearts. And the first precept in training, and this has sort of been articulated by Thich Nhat Hanh, aware of the suffering caused by the destruction of lives, I vow to cultivate compassion and learn ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. And Catherine included bugs. And as I listened, I remembered my daughter must have been 8 or 9. I walked into the kitchen, and on the counter, there was a little ladybug. It didn't seem to be moving too much, but beside the ladybug, there were some drops of water and a leaf. I said, there's a ladybug here with some water and a leaf beside it. And my daughter said, Mom, I didn't know, maybe the ladybug would be thirsty or hungry. And I thought, oh, hear the tenderness of this, right? Hear the metta in this. You know, and as Catherine emphasized, the Brahma Viharas, they are the foundations in the precepts. And for sure, the precepts help us to cultivate the Brahma Viharas. As Buddha was dying, he said to the monk Ananda, Ananda, after I'm gone, the community of monks and nuns should look upon the practice of the precepts as their teacher. Buddha wanted the precepts to be our teachers. And we can call upon these teachers anytime and anywhere for guidance, whether it is something going on inside or outside of us. Sila, or morality practice, informs and develops and sensitizes our understanding of ahimsa, non-harm. And sila is also, it's the expression of our understanding. We walk the walk as best as we can. And you know, we will emphasize how important it is to meet ourselves where we are, to pace ourselves, to feel our edges in this. We're going to miss the mark. As Bill and Susan often say, we're still good people. We want to rest our heart in that intention and adjust accordingly when we need to. And for me, the precepts really emphasize how these practices are embodied off our cushions. We're learning to live from them. We're learning to live a little more by them. We work it, so to speak. And as we work it, it works us. The precepts help us to become more intentional with our behavior and our thoughts and our speech. And they help us to bring forward the kinder, affiliative, and compassionate qualities. And as we've heard many, many times, one of the fruits of these practices is that our understanding becomes more nuanced. Pema Chodron said, compassion for others begins with kindness to ourselves. And I've heard this many times, but I heard it last week and I just allowed myself to repeat this over and over. Compassion for others begins with kindness to ourselves. Susan spoke about all the different kinds of ways that we may not be so kind to ourselves, ways we may cause harm to self and others. And it can be so subtle or big and obvious. We've learned that holding on to anger is like picking up a hot coal and wanting to throw it at the person you're angry with, and we get burned. Or that resentment. And I'm going to focus on resentment a little bit today. Is like taking poison and hoping that it harms the other. Holding on to resentment truly causes us harm. How we respond to our suffering can either soften or sharpen the difficult experience, whatever it is. And we have a choice. We have a choice. That's the good news. Viktor Frankl said, between the stimulus and our response, if we pause, we have a choice. And isn't it in the marrow of these suffering, right? Where we cause trouble for ourselves, where addictions occur, whether it's food, alcohol, raging, ruminations, condemnations, and all sorts of strategies that we've learned in an attempt to feel safe or in an attempt to find some kind of refuge. It's not a true refuge. It's a false refuge. When you hear the word resentment, what feelings stir in you? When you feel resentment, where do you feel it in the body? What stirs in the heart, mind, and body when resentment arises? When resentment heats up, what happens to breathing? What happens on your face? So I looked up some definitions of resentment, and here's one. Resentment is not letting go of an obsession which develops through association with the anger which underlies it. Resentment is a clinging to an intention to cause harm and withhold forgiveness. And I looked up the word forgiveness because forgiveness is going to certainly figure into this exploration of the precepts. I have no doubt we're going to be hearing a lot more about forgiveness. And the definition from the Merriam-Webster dictionary on forgiveness: to cease to feel resentment. And resent is an interesting word. It means resense, to resense, to feel over and over again. And all of us have been hurt, rejected, or judged, ignored, betrayed. All of us have caused harm and been harmed knowingly or unknowingly, justly or unjustly, by ourselves and by others. And though we know everyone makes mistakes, and oh boy, sometimes it's really hard to forgive ourselves or others. Forgiveness can truly be a long and arduous process, and in our own good time. Some of us walk around with grudges and hurts we've had since childhood. I do. I have. And we might feel righteous and protective of these grudges. And we develop these strategies to protect ourselves, to protect our grudges, to protect our identities, to protect our hearts. We will retell, maybe relive these stories over and over and over again. And here is the resensing. This is just for our consideration as we explore. We can become very attached to our suffering. We can become very attached to our resentments and identified with it. Maybe it's the one way we feel we can make things right, by holding on to the resentment, as if holding on to it is going to change something. And of course, it doesn't. It almost never does. Who benefits from these righteous positions? And who suffers harm from these righteous positions? And I think more than anyone, we suffer. And in the context of mindfulness, resentment or any feeling can be helpful. But here, let's focus on resentment, because it informs us that there's something that's occurring that I haven't yet learned to hold. I haven't yet learned to speak skillfully about. I haven't yet learned how to respond skillfully to the hurt, perceived or real. Compassion for others begins with kindness to ourselves. When we're gripped by resentment, we are hurting. This hurts. And our mindfulness practice helps us to come out of that tight view of Jaye's resentment, Jaye's grievance, into a wider view. Wide view, right view, mindfulness view, where we can begin to administer kindness to our suffering. Just going to read 3 little lines from Mark Nepo. But how? It is said that the soul's intent on living will reach deep into their wound and bring out the fire living there, which out in the open turns to light.